The following opinions are solely those of BoatTEST.com and its test captain. Hi, Captain Steve for BoatTEST.com. A lot of people are gravitating towards offshore express fishing boats as cruisers because of their salty looks and seakeeping abilities. The Rampage 41 Express is a prime example of that trend, and today I'm going to put it through a full sea trial. So let's get underway and see how she performs. We certainly couldn't have picked a better day to test her seakeeping, as it was raining and gusting across Lake Michigan. We headed out past the breakwater and directly into the snotty conditions with 2 to 4 foot seas. With a pair of 715 horsepower Cat C12 ACERTs turning 29 by 43 inch V interceptor props, we reached a top speed of 35.5 knots at 2300 RPM. At that speed, we were burning 68 gallons per hour for a range of 328.7 nautical miles. Best cruise came in at 1750 RPM at 24.3 knots. That speed reduced the fuel burn down to 37 gallons per hour, giving us a range of 414.6 nautical miles. This is impressive range for this size and type of boat, and it is because of her 700-gallon fuel capacity, which is 30% more than a number of boats in class. Now, the Rampage factory delivery captain tells us that he has easily reached speeds of 37 knots. Considering that he probably did so on a calm day, we could believe that with no problem. But the fact that we came darn close to that in 2 to 4 foot seas is a huge testimony to how well this boat handles rough conditions, and she did it with no pounding. This is an exceptionally well-mannered boat. She carved through these conditions with ease and remained comfortable throughout the entire test. Her wide flared bows throw a lot of water, and with gusty conditions there was no way to expect a dry ride. However, we did find that the wipers were sufficient to keep the windshields clear, and we appreciated the delay feature as well as the fact that they're self-stowing. As good as she was in a head sea, she was even better in the beam and following seas. In beam-on conditions, she remained level and just rode up and down them. Autopilot held the course steadily with no corrections needed. In following seas, there was no tendency to plow into the forward waves, but she would slice through with more than enough buoyancy to rise to the top every time. We tried increasing speeds at select times to see if the bow would stuff, but she was having none of it. She just kept slicing through and rising to meet the next wave, all while we were able to stand with barely a need to hold on to anything. On our return, we needed to test her docking ability with the shafts and rudders, which avoid the upcharges and extra maintenance of pod drives and a joystick. We're seeing that she moves well in her own momentum, and there's a lot of thrust coming from those props, so to start, shifted to low mode with a switch under the panel to engage the trolling valves and slow things down. Then, just control her with pulses in and out of gear, using the separate engines to control speed and direction. We had her sliding side to and used the optional thruster to gently hold her off the dock, and that translated into a gentle kiss against the dock just as we ran out of momentum. For backing into a slip, we lined up the stern and drove her back in with the engines pulling the stern gently one way or the other. The bow thruster would then keep the hull lined up properly for the narrow entry. She's quite intuitive and seems to follow the commands on her own with very little input from the helm. It was eerie and comforting at the same time. Now let's check out her engine compartment. A switch to the starboard side actuates the electric lift hatch, and the entire helm deck rises to provide unrestricted access to the compartment. Steps lead directly between both engines where the checkpoints are located. There's nearly standing headroom and access to both sides of the engines. Sea strainers are bronze and all connections are double clamped. Exhaust risers are supported from underneath with stainless tie rods. Rampage includes an 11 kW generator as standard. And the shore cord is managed by a retractable cord reel. In all respects, I find this engine room executed on the highest level in class. Quicker access to the engines is through a day hatch that utilizes the same entry steps. So the bottom line is, pods and a joystick are not necessary. She handles great in rough conditions, and she's able to run almost as fast through heavy seas as she does on the flat. And that's my sea trial of the Rampage 41 Express. For BoatTEST.com, I'm Captain Steve. We'll see you on the water.